Y'all, I've been gone a minute and I had to step back because honestly, I got too busy living to explain how to live. But I'm back with something that has been sitting heavy on my spirit. You ever notice how exhausted you get fighting for a seat at a table you never asked to eat at? Like that bone deep, tired, that sleep can't fix? Today, queer black wealth and everything that I'll speak to in this passion project, if you will. The discussion here is about profound freedom. Profound, like in recognizing which fights actually belong to us and which are the ones we've been drafted into. What woke me up at 3 a.m. and after listening to some other people that I've heard say this before and I heard say it again recently, that just sparked it back up again. The beautiful truth about being queer and black in America is that the fight that's happening in front of us all right now, it was never ours to begin with, in my opinion. Okay, my word ain't law. I'm just having coffee talking to y'all. But that's not a loss. It actually is freedom that we've been waiting for to happen. It's liberation. Let me explain myself. So the first point I want to make is there's a beautiful distinction of our perspective while we observe all of this outside of us. Let me start with something that might ruffle feathers, but it needs saying. America has its own journey, its own complicated, tragic, and whatever privilege that is left journey. And we get to observe it from this very unique vantage point, especially now, especially in this particular Civil War sort of social moment, a socio-political economic moment of unraveling that's happening around us. I want to make this point without unraveling too much or ranting too much. Queer black folks bring entirely different currencies to the economy of existence. We're operating with spiritual Bitcoin while they're still arguing about paper money and pennies. It's like our wealth has always been measured in survival metrics that a lot of folks around us can't even conceptualize and feel along with us. Let me give you an example that'll make this clear, or maybe clearer. Nelson Mandela is not Barack Obama. Two brilliant men, two powerful leaders in their own rights and in their own ways, but Nelson ain't Barry and won't ever be. You know why? Because they operated in two completely different systemic situations. Mandela was fighting for majority rule in a place where the majority looked like him, and Obama was trying to lead a nation where his very existence in that position was considered an aberration, like by a significant portion of the population that he was leading. So our metrics for success have always operated systemically on different frequencies from the mainstream. So when white allies families were building picket fences, we were building underground railroads. And even in the financial sector, when we discuss stocks and taxes, when we discuss it, we're discussing how to keep our families together, right? Different games, different rules, different prizes. Here's the gift. Stay with me here. The gift of seeing systems from outside their intended user base. That's the key to what makes us internally free first. And this is what a lot of us struggle through. So let's talk about code switching for a minute. Now, for those of you who are a little bit younger and you were privileged enough to not have to even think about what that was, or you heard about it and laughed, the folks of us who are traumatized by it still and still are, indoctrinated around everything about it as it relates to our survival. Code switching is that exhausting performance of being bilingual in your own life. So you know what I'm talking about. That voice you use in the office versus the one that you use at Sunday dinner. The constant mental gymnastics of microaggressions where you're calculating, is this worth my energy to address? Will addressing it make me the problem? That sort of thing. There's another element. Don't even get me started on the political circus, right? Democrats and Republicans both chasing after black faces for photo ops while our actual needs just still remain unmet. So if you've been listening to me for a while, you know that I don't trust either side. They're both selling us futures in a house that they never intended to let us own anyway. But it's really important for us to remember that the perspective that we have of all of this is outside of it. Okay? That's the first point I wanted to make. The second is there's this inheritance of what the whole American dream is that we never signed up for. And I know you know that in theory, and I know that you know that logically. But it brings me to speaking about it like an inheritance, because it's an inheritance nobody asked if we even wanted it. You know how when somebody dies and they leave you their house, but they also leave you their debt? That's what happened with us in the American dream, or black excellence, which is the same thing with blackface. We inherited aspirations that were never designed with our true freedom in mind. Think about it. Which dreams are actually handed to us versus which ones we cultivated in our own soil? Our allies, even our white allies, even our friends, and I say this with love for any of my friends who are listening, even they're starting to see how capitalism is eating itself. It's pretty rampant now that you can see that. And they're having their own awakenings about borrowed aspirations, about whatever a middle class is or was. And for us, we've been knowing this. We've been philosophers of necessity and survival since day one. We've been minimalists since we've had to be. How can I put this without going off on too deep of a rant? How systemic positioning creates natural philosophers out of us. This is crucial. We get a choice around radicalism. Listen to me closely with what I'm about to say. You can be political if you want to, as a queer black person here. Okay? If you're living in America, you can be political if you want to. But if you don't want to, and folks start blaming you for things, trying to make you responsible for all black progress or any American progress, do not absorb that. Don't internalize it. That's slavery all over again. Let me see if I can explain it this way. There's this song back home in New Orleans that brass bands play, usually around Mardi Gras. Different versions of it by different artists. Trombone Shorty, Lenny Kravitz did one. I think even Mystical Silk the Shock or whatever had a version. But they all got this chant, "Oh, it ain't my fault." Like, that energy right there. That's what I'm bringing today. It ain't your fault that systems are crumbling and your job to fix what didn't break, and your responsibility to be the black success story that makes everybody comfortable. The internal compromise that we make in response to the systemic changes and challenges that we have to navigate daily, the ones that the inflictor of it doesn't even see, that's our biggest fight. That's our first fight to win, if there's any fight at all, and it's internal. The truth about representation is that every time someone told me that I needed to be an example of black excellence or a little piece of what any of this American dream bullshit would mean to me, that I needed to be an example of it, a little piece of my soul just went on strike. Because excellence for who? Measured by what? Validated by whom? Right? So again, a lot of what you're probably told to take on that is sitting in our lap actually is not ours. That was my second point. My third point, your energy is not a public resource, and it's really key to remember this to be free. Let me tell you a story about energy sovereignty and how it relates to wealth and how it changed my whole perspective about what wealth is. Back in New Orleans, my hometown, my heart, my soul, my spirit, my everything, I started making friends with folks who transplanted there. At first, it felt good. I like to travel, and I like people who travel. So people who moved into my hometown, of course, I'm going to make friends with them to ask them about where they come from, how their life was, blah, 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 blah. You're the native. So what do? You show people around, being the native who knows where to get the best everything or whatever's left of it. That hospitality, love, the whole spirit of what New Orleans actually always was, nothing wrong there, right? You make friends with people who come into the city. But then it started to shift. It went from let a native show you around to something that started to stink of systemic leaning, the leaning on Black women, not just to explain a place, but to validate their presence in it and to agree with the improvements and to co-sign on the colonization and the gentrification and the appropriation of it all. And I'm talking about people getting actually upset with me, fussing up and down about what something should be called now versus what it was called my whole life. Like I'm supposed to update my memories to match their Google searches and Yelp. It's just the social exhaustion of it all. So with everything else that's happening in this country right now, there's a reason that leaving my city didn't hurt like I thought it would. I miss my New Orleans, but that started dissolving after Katrina anyway. The recent politics, plus how I felt right before I left, it helps me not miss it so much. Maybe I'll go back, maybe I won't. But that desperate pain that I expected, I guess it's 3 years now, it never came. And here's what I learned from that. Strategic conservation of your energy is wealth. And it is also a revolutionary practice right now. Is that what I wanted to say? Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Your energy as a Black person or a queer Black person or person of color is not a public utility. Okay? It's not infrastructure for other people in America's comfort. It's not our responsibility to pull down monuments to slaveholders. It's not our job to make anybody here better people. It's not. And it's really important for your wealth and your freedom and your peace to remember that. It's not our duty to explain how we feel so that they can try to feel what we feel. And let's be real, they never really will. That's individual work. That is not our job. I set myself free from that, from the well-meaning folks and from the Black radicals who insisted that I had to fight every fight. Some of them I still consider friends, honestly, and love them dearly, but boundaries had to be drawn. So the radical act of saying that's not my ministry, honey, that'll change your life. It really will. When people tell you it's your job to be an example, to represent, to uplift the race, that is manipulation dressed up as motivation and hope. Building your own tables instead of begging for seats at others that never wanted us there. And understanding that New Orleans isn't South Africa, America is not South Africa, politics is still politics, corruption wears every face. So our wealth and our freedom and our simplicity of life, the rest we truly need, not the forced rest or the rest, but the rest that we really deserve, it doesn't come from American sources, not really. Some parts of it might look similar. Degrees, six-figure jobs, homes in certain neighborhoods, a few of us, emphasis on a few, having a tiny bit of discretionary income or savings, being able to give and share with your community. But even that, we hold on to it so tightly because it's so precarious in this economy and for us specifically in this environment. Because all of it could be gone tomorrow, which is the reason why you see folks exiting, right? And finding other countries to live in and retire in, somewhere that feels safer and more peaceful than the bullshit that we're looking at around us. Energy is sovereignty when you own your energy and where you put it. And that is wealth building. There's no perfect existence globally. Like right now, it's a lot of stuff is happening across the world, no matter what. America's feeling the worst pinch of a lot of it. But there's no perfect existence, say it like that. So whatever peace or freedom, whatever wealth actually does mean to you, you can find it or create it if you are remembering what we're discussing today, these 3 points, right? the main 3 points that I tried to make today without unraveling too much and losing my thread were: we have a distinctive perspective. We live within it, but we are really not a part of it. That's the first point. The second point was what we did inherit, we never signed up for it. And then your energy is not a public resource that everybody just gets to tap into. Those are the 3 points. So I guess the last thing I wanted to say was you do have permission, validated permission, to not need to be radical to be free. Let that sink in. Your freedom, your liberation doesn't require a protest sign. Sometimes it looks like a Sunday nap. Sometimes it's teaching your kid to cook your grandmother's recipes without electricity. And sometimes it's just putting your feet in grass and just existing. Quiet resistance and deliberate joy, deliberate softness, whatever it means to you, that is revolutionary right now. And every time you laugh when they expect you to cry, and when you rest when they demand you hustle, and when you love whoever you love when they're selling fear, all of that is freedom and resistance at the same time. Building parallel economies of care, not competing with their economy of extraction. Creating wealth through community and not competition. Understanding that tax strategies can be a sort of freedom, can be a sovereignty practice. Yeah, I snuck that in there. I still work. But the revolution of simply existing authentically, when authentic existence was never part of the plan, that is an ultimate victory. And that's definitely wealth as well. So your ancestors didn't survive for you to die on hills that were never yours to climb. They didn't endure what they endured for you to exhaust yourself performing freedom for an audience that can't even see the show. Because some of them never will, and they just won't. And your freedom is going to probably look a little bit differently than how they think it should. It may not be a battlefield. It may be a garden. It can sound like laughter and not battle cries. It can feel like rest that's not rushed or forced because you have something else to do in an hour. The American experiment is going to do what it do, okay? And you get to do what you're doing and build what you're building and love whoever you love and rest whenever you need rest. If you remember this, at the end of the day, the most freeing thing that you can do is refusing to let their crisis, their civil war, become your calling. Their emergency is not your ministry, and their comfort is not your cross to bear. You are free to be free and free to be wealthy, however that looks for you. So that's all I had to say today. Until next time, just keep finding ways to be peaceful and free, and keep your energy sovereign and your boundaries sacred. As sacred as you can. Take care.